Okay, so how are you? Today we will discuss about types of energy system. But we all know that energy is coming from ATP, right? When you break the ATP, you release the energy and you use that energy whatever your body needs, right? So now we all know that we have three types of engines, right? But let's forget about it. We will talk about types of energy system. There are two types of energy system. The first one is anaerobic system and the second one is aerobic system. Anaerobic means a system, suppose an engine which will give you energy in the absence of oxygen, right? Now if I talk about aerobic, means a system, an engine which will provide you energy in the presence of oxygen, right? Now if I talk about anaerobic, it contains two parts, right? The first one is creatine phosphate and the second one is lactic acid system. And if I talk about aerobic system, it just contains simply one thing, which will be oxidative system. Now I will discuss these three systems one by one. Okay, so actually want to give you a brief summary that these three energy systems actually work together, but at a particular time, one energy system will be dominating and the other two will be, they will just help, they will just simply help out, that's it. So now if I talk about the first one, which is creatine phosphate system. Okay, basically creatine phosphate is a compound. Okay, it is a compound which contains phosphate group. I will tell you the use. Okay, see, when you have ATP, right? This is your ATP. This palm is your adenosine. These three groups, these three fingers are three phosphate groups, right? This is your adenosine, this is your phosphate groups. Now the ATP breakdown will occur, right? The energy will release and the ATP will convert into ADP, right? ADP means adenosine group. This palm is your adenosine and these two fingers are your phosphate group, right? This is your adenosine, this is your 2-phosphate group. Okay, this one phosphate group is actually broken down to release the energy, right? Now what will happen, the creatine phosphate compound actually have phosphate group, right? So the creatine will donate a phosphate group, one phosphate group, or I will say one phosphate finger to this palm. So it will just donate, right? It will just donate this phosphate group and this ADP will become again the ATP, and this process will be continued. So I just told you that creatine phosphate is actually an aerobic process. It doesn't need of oxygen, right? So when I talk about creatine phosphate system, it actually occurs, it actually dominates when you perform explosive movement just for few seconds, right? The limitation, this is the limitation. It actually burns very quickly and it acts only the time period of 1 second to 12 seconds. It actually lasts up to 12 seconds, right? So this is your creatine phosphate system. This is your next part, which is lactic acid system, right? We all know that lactic acid system is a part of anaerobic system, right? It usually doesn't need of oxygen, I will say majorly. Okay, so it uses the glycogen to release the ATP, so that the ATP will be broken down to release the energy, right? What is glycogen? We all know that glycogen is a storage form of carbohydrates, storage form of glucose in your body. And in your body, where? Muscles and liver. Okay, so we can actually store almost 1700 calories in your body. It will depend on individual level, the amount of muscle you have, the amount of, I will say, the size of liver, but on an average, I will say it's 1700 calories. Okay, you can actually store those 1700 calories in your muscle and liver. Now, if I talk about lactic acid system, so it lasts up to 80 to 90 seconds. What does this mean? Suppose you are actually doing a sprint. Okay, the sprint is of 100 meters, right? And you can actually cover that 100 meter in 10 seconds. So you will use the ATP phosphocreatine system, creatine phosphate system, right? Now suppose I am increasing the distance. I will increase the distance, which will be around 400 meters. Now you actually covering these 400 meters in 30 seconds. So what will happen? You will use lactic acid system, okay, as a dominating site, because our phosphocreatine system lasts up to 10 seconds, right? It burns very quickly. After that, after 10 seconds, those remaining 20 seconds will be dominated by lactic acid system. Okay, the third one is aerobic system. All you have to do is, suppose you want to go in a long ride. Okay, it's a long distance. You have a Mustang GT with your beautiful girlfriend or your family or friends, whatever, right? So you are covering a long distance, right? So what you need? You need a relaxed engine. You need a slow paced energy, right? That condition is similar to this one, which is aerobic system. Now in aerobic system, what we do is we actually use macronutrients, which is glucose, fats and protein. We break them in the presence of oxygen so that it can release ATP, and that ATP will release energy. That's it. Now it's a long lasting, right? Suppose you are doing a marathon, I will say. Okay, suppose you want to run approximately 5 kilometers. So you will use this one, which is aerobic system, and that's it. Okay, these energy systems looks complex, but it is not. In our lecture part, we will discuss about the practical application. Okay, so till then, see you, and if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section.